Hello, I'm Will Pointer,
And I'm Ray Pointer.
and together we're the founders of ResearchWise AI. And today we'll be discussing advanced qualitative analysis in AI. So, Ray, to start us off, what is the difference between qualitative and quantitative analysis?
Okay, well, we could get wrapped up in the weeds on that one, so I'll try not to. There are two fundamental elements really about qualitative analysis. One is the material we're working with. It's unstructured usually. It can be text, it can be pictures, it can be videos of people, it can be a wide variety of things like that. It doesn't have the structure that lends itself to counting and to algorithms to interpret it. So that's the first difference. What are we working with? The second is how we're working with it. What we're doing is we're leveraging the human brain. We're not relying on algorithms. We're not relying on methods that can be readily duplicated and rolled out. We have people who have learned about how to interpret human interactions so that they can produce findings that are useful to decision makers. It's essentially subjective. It's highly trained, and you bring in all sorts of objective bits and pieces. But the fundamental piece is the human brain, as opposed to the fundamental piece being an algorithm.
And in working up to our headline topic, how are people using AI today for non-advanced qual?
Yeah, I mean, they're making a lot of use of it, and there are two classic cases. The first is they use it to turn unstructured information into structured information so they can do quant. We can use it to do sentiment analysis. We can do it to code open-ended statements. So none of that is real qualitative analysis. What we're doing is we're operationalizing the process so that we can do quant. The second is a little bit better. We can ask it to summarize. So we've got a whole bunch of open-ended comments, and we say to the LLM, please give me a summary of what people are saying. And that's interesting and it can be useful, but it really isn't very advanced. It's like asking the intern to read a whole set of things and they will give you a reasonable summary, but it's not going to get into what it really means, how you use it, how to answer business questions.
So following on from that, what do people mean then by advanced qual?
So there is about 100 years of really good academic theory and then practice around how do we interpret language, how do we interpret signs and symbols and messages in a way that allows us to understand them. So there are tools like grounded theory, like narrative analysis, like discourse analysis that look at this unstructured information in ways that allow you to extract much more meaning from what's going on there. It's not just at the superficial level, but it's actually getting to the structure of the meaning and linking it to a wider set of knowledge. And that is what I mean by advanced qualitative analysis.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. Whenever we're adopting new technology, new methodologies, whenever we're disrupting tried and tested techniques, we always have to ask ourselves, what are the risks of doing this way? So, what are the risks around using AI for qual analysis?
So I think the two biggest risks, the first one is well known, it's really obvious, it's hallucinations. It's telling you something which is not in the data. So you ask it a question and there is nothing in the data that actually answers it, so it makes up an answer. One of the things you'll notice when you use the LLMs doing qual analysis is you will sometimes ask it for an example of a quote, and it will show you an example, and then you search the database, and that quote isn't there. So you have to be really strict with your prompt engineering, really strict with your back checking that it is only giving you quotes that are in the data. The second risk is much less talked about, but I think it's in some ways it's a bigger risk. AI tends to believe what people said in the interview, in the focus group, and so on. So people will say, oh, price doesn't matter. I always buy the best solution. No, they don't. We know they don't. AI, if you leave, just ask it to summarize it, will tell you people will always buy the best product irrespective of price, because they simply go around believing what is there. You need to allow it to interpret things. You need to give it the tools that I talked about, like the discourse analysis, even content analysis, so that we are setting things up in a way to enable the brain to work faster. The best users of AI for qual analysis are good qualitative analysts because actually, A, they're speeding themselves up, they're looking at more material than they would otherwise look at, but they have a bullshit filter that says, I don't believe that. And they will dive into why they're getting that response.
That makes a lot of sense. I don't know if you remember from a few weeks ago, we were experimenting with Gemini's summarization tool. And you and I were having a meeting, and as we're business partners discussing ResearchWise AI, but also family members, we went off piste at the end and discussed the bird feeder in the back garden. And in its summary, it said they moved on to a discussion of a parable. And the AI tried to find meaning in what we had said that related to business because it couldn't work out why we'd changed topic so dramatically. So yes, always watching out for where it's trying to believe or put into context where there is none.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You said earlier about where AI is sometimes being used today for more basic qual analysis and it going through a process of what I would call quantization or operarization. Um, and so to apply that thought process, using modern LLMs on large amounts of unstructured qual data, is that not just another type of operationalization into quant? Effectively, LLMs work on numbers when it gets down to the chip level.
I don't think it is. I think that it is trying to replicate the subjective approach. So it is looking at every conversation, whether it's a one-on-one conversation between an interviewer and a participant, or whether it's a focus group discussion. It's trying to interpret what is happening in there, and then almost the only maths it's doing at the end of it is to say, well, it looks like a lot more people are concerned about the green impact of this. And by green, they mean this, and they mean this, and this mean this. So it's going to do a little bit of frequency sense within that. But it's going to work directly with the meanings and the interpretation. It's rather like if I interviewed 10,000 people and then I gave you a summary of what I learned from those 10,000 people. And it really wouldn't matter if 100 of them were green or if 120 of the 10,000 were green. I would say what these people liked was this, but actually they were a tiny minority because of this. And I think that is what I mean by qual at scale. But clearly, some researchers, some companies who are looking for larger amounts are looking to do the alternative, which is to turn it into quantifiable information. And I think that we will still, even when we're using AI for 95% of our quant and 95% of our qual, we will still have both of them because one will be fundamentally about algorithms and one will be fundamentally about subjective assessment.
Hmm. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you. And finally, for those that are already familiar with doing qual research, experience within qual research, and have not really got into AI, but would like to experiment, how would you suggest they go about experimenting with AI and qual analysis?
So I think by far and away the easiest way is to take projects that you have finished, where you have done the analysis, where you have written them up, and then to run them through different styles. So uploading your audio files maybe into Gemini and then asking it to summarize them and have a look and see what was the same and what was different to what you produced. And where it produces something that is different, is it less good? Is it wrong? Or is it equally good? Or is it potentially insightful? Have that open mind about where these differences are and what they might mean. And once you've done that at the summarizing level, then move on to say, right, I would like you to run discourse analysis against this. And now I would like you to run narrative analysis and tell me about what is common between the two outcomes, what is different between the two outcomes, and then even feed in your research from last time and say, what are the fundamental differences and what are the differences resting on? And be open to some criticism. And that I think is going to enable you to see what can you use it for and what can't you use it for and when should you use it? Should you use it before you do any analysis yourself or should you use it after you've done some analysis?
Thank you. A few weeks ago, you showed me a demonstration of submitting several photos to AI and asking it to tell you about the people or the person in these photos. Is that another case of where people can experiment with qual analysis using AI?
Absolutely, because I uploaded 10 for one. I think the largest group I did was 40. We could upload with the right tools, hundreds, thousands, and ask it to give a sense. We could ask it to look for differences over time. If we uploaded things from 5 years ago, 2 years ago, this year, one of the things I did when I was looking at the photographs is I asked it to describe what sort of person would take these photographs, the sort of analysis you outside of academia you probably would never run in commercial research, but because it's faster, you can do things which you would normally only do in an academic setting, which is going to open up a lot more avenues for us in terms of commercial research.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for that, Ray. And thank you for everyone listening for joining us with Talking AI by ResearchWise AI.
Thanks.